Inflation alert, vegetables 40% up in a single month. How are we going to save money moving forward? Also, cold warnings, equatorial belt, Africa. Maybe that's the reason our food price is increasing, and it's not really about the tariffs. And starting with an article from Zero Hedge, just a second wave of inflation coming. It's here. Now, when you look at this chart, it looks sort of a gradual, we rose up during COVID time and now it's flattening. There's a general trajectory up, especially across the grocery cost, that top purplish line. But then if you look at the green for the produce, it just suddenly jumps up. What's happened with that and what's the real cost analysis? It doesn't stand out because it's such a long-term chart. And a lot of times they're trying to bury these numbers in wholesale fresh vegetable prices. You'll get something like this, so it looks like it's a normal pattern. But that vertical, 38.9%, we haven't seen that much of a jump in a single 1 month since 1949. Put that in perspective for a second. That was coming out of the war when we started to print money. World War II, that is. But you can see there's been some very large drops, but then there's been some rises, but not anything like we've seen nearly, but this breaks all the records back to that time period. And wholesale vegetable prices, June and July, 38.9% in a single month. Wholesale veggies price soar. Now keep in mind, this is on the wholesale side. So when it finally reaches you in the supermarket, it's going to be a little more expensive because wholesalers are always add on a couple percent here, a couple percent there. And then the supermarkets themselves, what comes in on that, 40% spikes. Now, some news outlets are trying to blame tariffs. Others are blaming NAFTA. I'm going to say that, well, we're importing far too much from other nations where we could be growing some of this ourselves. Charts of note, this is from the USDA's Economic Research Service. What they're showing us is since approximately 2007, there's been a very large increase in the amount of imports coming into the US of our foodstuffs. I call that a national security risk. But in business world, it's called saving costs and increasing share price. So if we're looking at this here and we're having significant problems with rises in food, beef, eggs. Now these beef and eggs are from within the United States. But these fresh veg and fruit that are coming from elsewhere, you're going to start to get the sticker shock right about now. I think as a way to spur the economy, at least a lot of documents I've read and some of the research and previous projects that have been implemented but then taken away due to cheaper imports from other countries that have been tried and proven before, is growing some of these own, what we consider native grown plants in the United States, whether that's fruit or veg. We can expand farming. We can expand a different industry now that a lot of jobs are being taken away by AI. Why can't we go back to the farms and allow you to use some of this technology to improve farming methods and increase yield outputs and still put people to work if they love to do farming, if that's what they love? And it doesn't have to be out in a hot field doing cabbage or something. Different types of fruits and veg can be grown in different conditions, and all these companion planting ideas as well, not taken into consideration on the monocrop, but we need to. Somehow we've just rolled over this into a magic month where everything is going up 40 to 50% in a single month. If you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here's something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing: you're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And one company makes that easy: Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold, silver, coins, bars. They'll ship to your home, or you can have it stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Visit 2030gold.com. That's 2030gold.com. Because when you own real assets, you own real wealth. And please remember, Noble Gold, fair, transparent. They're not going to pressure you. They're going to give you actual information and real options in which to make good decisions. Again, that's 2030gold.com. click on that link in the description box below. What's that going to do for your cost for food? Well, a lot of people aren't going to notice it until you go into the store in the very short order. But these are some suggestions moving forward. Give you just an idea of where it's rising right now. Average cost of fruits and veggies in the United States. This is pre this 40% rise in a single month. So fresh fruits are around $1.50 to $4 a pound. Apples, bananas, strawberries. Now add another 50% on that, or 40% wholesale, but then add 10% for retail. So you're going to be about 50%. So if it's $4 and you're adding $2 more for 50, it's $6. And then you're adding 50% to every one of these. So if it was $3, add 50%, it's actually $4.50 now for broccoli. At that point, well, do you grow your own? That's a very good possibility. Find local farmers, get better foods, go to the Amish, find these types of wholesale markets, maybe talk to somebody who's growing, see if you can get something directly from the wholesaler, which they're trying to stop in Oregon, which is really interesting. I did that article a couple days back about Oregon farmers being pressured by the state to stop selling road stands without incredible amounts of regulation and permitting and costs and these, application fees and all these things, to stop U-Pick and to stop people visiting the farm and then picking the vegetable and then having the farmers run a food to table kind of private cooking thing after you go help harvest everything. You get the cooking lessons, and then they're trying to stop all of that. So even in Oregon, they're trying to stop you from getting produce, fruits, veg at the source, at the farmer. So if that's the first state to do it, others are going to follow. This is always the continuous play to separate us from food, because we become more dependent on a system after they do that. So here's a possibility, and I linked a video below where they compared fresh and frozen vegetables. And I thought for sure the fresh would be higher value, quality, nutrients, vitamins, etc. This is from a supermarket. If you're growing it in your garden and you're going out and picking it, 2 minutes later you're eating it, far surpasses anything. If you're rocking up to the Amish farm and you're getting it and bringing it in, within a day or so from their farm, it surpasses almost everything. This is just industrial food that gets picked early and then it ripens in the process while it's moving for 6 weeks from point A to point B. They find that the frozen foods actually contain far higher vitamin C contents, micronutrients, minerals, etc., because they were picked fresh and then frozen. Locks everything in. But the foods that appear to be like fresh vegetables were picked incredibly ripe. Sometimes they're kept in different types of gases to prevent ripening until right when it reaches an area, and then, it ripens on site, or they know the maturation and ripening period after it's picked. It could take a few weeks or up to a month in a container somewhere in a truck, getting from point A to point B, and it ripens during that process. So fresh vegetables from the supermarket are very different than fresh vegetables from your garden or local. And one way is frozen veggies. And I linked that video. I was shocked when I saw literally 16 times more vitamin C in Brussels sprouts than the ones that were picked and then ripened across the supply chain. 16 times more vitamin C when they were frozen. You got to watch it. Everything was like 8 times more for this, 10 times more for this, double this, 4 times more for that. And nutrients on frozen foods. Peas were another big one that had a lot more freshness if you got the frozen versus the fresh. So that's just an option to cut some costs. Because McDonald's, remember, that was the go-to during COVID. Everybody ran out to their favorite fast food restaurant. It was you could get some food. It was cheaper. People were trying to do a lot of cost saving at that time too. So McDonald's got up into the $18, Big Mac meal. And people were like, yo, you just hyperinflated us out of ever going back to a fast food restaurant again. But they've had so much pushback that they're now, in conjunction, the entire McDonald's chain is lowering their prices to make them 15% lower than if you bought each individual item by itself. That is a pack, needs to be at least minimum 15% below. So if you got like a Big Mac and a fry and a Coke or whatever, and it costs you this much, let's say $10, it would have to be at least $1.50 lower in price if you bundled that together. They must be losing a tremendous amount of share if they're trying to reduce their food costs to get people to come back. Means something's dropped off a cliff for them. Companies don't do this unless they're under incredible duress. And restaurant business, they talk about the combo meal, and then they're bringing back dollar drinks because they want you back in there. And So the total that McDonald's is resetting new prices, if you buy everything together, like a Big Mac fry and a drink, it'll be $11.69. So they're trying to get it to you for $9.94, just under that $10 price point. Make you feel like you got a bargain instead of 18 bucks. It's only $9.94 plus tax, another 10%. Oh, wait, it went over 10 bucks. So anyway, they're trying to lure you back by reducing your food costs. Now, the whole thing, they kept trying to say it was all about tariffs and, the workers that were, picking fruits and veg in the fields or on the farms, they were ran away or they were deported or whatnot. So this is the reason that we're having food inflation. All right, that's the excuse given to you. I would like to present to you Kenya on the equator putting out cold warnings for temperatures of 6 degrees Celsius, which is in the low 40s. That people are going to need to bundle up. It's going to be foggy and like freezing rain across all of these counties, highlands, midlands, even down into the lowlands. Now, for me, this is like, what? Cold warnings for take a look at the 2 degrees south to 2 degrees north. That straddling range right actually on the equator, probably down to about 1 degree or half a degree south, a little bit around Nairobi. That's where the cold warnings for. And all around stretching out to Lake Victoria. Absolute bone-chilling cold warning, 6 degrees Celsius, low 40s on the equator. Do you think this could be a reason some of our food is not developing properly? Because we're getting flooded out across an enormous amount of nations that are producing food in addition to the rice. It's just nonstop. So here's some of the temperatures you're looking at in the 40s. Anywhere it's like that light green color is in the 40s. Anywhere it's greens is in the mid 40s. And I will not say this is Upper Peninsula, Michigan. This is on the equator in Kenya. Something is very different. And I thought, you know what? I go to Tropical Tidbits and let's take a look there at their forecast model for September 1st. Anywhere you see that purple is below normal temperatures and that blue is as well, as straddles all the way from Kenya completely across Africa. So you tell me, is it really the tariffs or is it something incredibly different with our moisture and temperature patterns on this planet? I'll leave you to be the judge. And since I was looking at Africa, check out the wave modeling for any of you surfing down Skeleton Bay, going to be at least 10 to 15. This is going to be perfect direction, perfect offshore winds, and well over double overhead on this one here. And if you haven't seen Skeleton Bay, it rolls in like this. This would be an epic moment for surfers, especially in the southern part of our world. I mean, it stacks up like this and it rides for miles. And the reason they got the Skeleton Coast is because it's such a dangerous place for vessels to pass off of. Oceans are rough, it's cold, and they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shipwrecks that roll up on these beaches. That's why they call it the Skeleton Coast. Nothing really lives there. It looks like that, barren for hundreds of miles. Vegetation sparse, in a hostile environment unless you bring everything with you. Speaking of hostile environments, this giraffe getting away, breaking its anchorings. Where is it going? Oh, right over the tunnel entrance somewhere in China. I do believe that is in Anhui province. So maybe that was a clue I needed to point me over to Africa, because something has definitely changed. I do appreciate you watching. Please check out Victory Nutrition International Trim Rocks Burn Boost Balance. That link's in the description box below, along with tonight's stories and links so you can chase down all the information in this video about the prices of the veggies increasing. And please remember, use the code CYCLE20 to take 20% off your order. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.